Dear students, I welcome you to this lecture. It is all about problem solving strategy. Before we go ahead, let us have a look at the objectives. Understanding the meaning of problem solving strategy, understanding the utility of problem solving method, and understanding the steps that are involved in problem solving. Problem solving as a kind of thinking is related to other terms such as thinking, reasoning, decision making, critical thinking, and creative thinking. Thinking refers to a problem solver's cognitive processing, but it includes both directed thinking, which is problem solving, and undirected thinking, such as daydreaming. Thus, thinking is a broader term that includes problem solving as a subset of thinking, that is, a kind of thinking that is directed thinking. Reasoning, decision making, critical thinking, and creative thinking are subsets of problem solving. Reasoning refers to problem solving with a specific task in which the goal is to draw a conclusion from premises using logical rules based on deduction or induction. Decision making refers to problem solving with a specific task in which the goal is to choose one or two or more alternatives based on some criteria. Thus, both reasoning and decision making are kinds of problem solving that are characterized by specific kinds of tasks. Finally, creative thinking and critical thinking refer to specific aspects of problem solving, respectively. Creative thinking involves generating alternatives that meet some criteria, such as listing all the possible uses of a brick, whereas critical thinking involves evaluating how well various alternatives meet some criteria, such as determining which are the best answers for the brick problem. In scientific problem solving situations, creative thinking is involved in generating hypotheses and critical thinking is involved in testing these hypotheses. The term problem solving is used in many disciplines, sometimes with different perspectives and often with different terminologies. For instance, it is a mental process in psychology and a computerized process in computer science. Problems can be classified into two different types: ill-defined and well-defined problems, from which appropriate solutions are to be made. Ill-defined problems are those that do not have clear goals, solution paths, or expected solution. Well-defined problems have specific goals, clearly defined solution paths, and clear expected solutions. These problems also allow for more initial planning than ill-defined problems. Being able to solve problems sometimes involves dealings with pragmatics, that is logic, and semantics, that is interpretation of the problem. A problem exists when a problem solver has a goal but not know how to accomplish it. Specifically, a problem occurs when a situation is in a given state. A problem solver wants this situation to be in a goal state, and the problem solver is not aware of an obvious way to transform this situation from the given state to the goal state. In his classic monograph on problem solving, the Gestalt psychologist Carl Dunker defines a problem. A problem arises when a living creature has a goal but does not know how this goal is to be reached. Whenever one cannot go from the given situation to the desired situation simply by action, then there has to be recourse to thinking. Such thinking has the task of devising some action which may mediate between the existing and desired situations. The ability to understand what the goal of the problem is and what rules could be applied represents the key to solving the problem. Sometimes the problem requires some abstract thinking and coming up with a creative solution. The basic purpose of education is to enable the child to adapt himself to life in society which is full of problems. To be successful, one must be adequately equipped with proper reasoning and reflecting power. Not only life in society, there are problems and puzzling situations which are a normal feature of a child's everyday life in school also. These problems grow in complexity as he grows older and older. Therefore, it is very important that problem solving must be encouraged in school life. A major goal of education is to help students learn in ways that enable them to use what they have learned to solve problems in new situations. In short, problem solving is fundamental to education because educators are interested in improving students' ability to solve problems. The children are curious by nature. They want to find out answers of several questions which sometimes are baffling even to adults. Nevertheless, they must be helped to satisfy their curiosity as far as possible by providing answers to their questions. This implies that we must teach them how to think and reflect so that they are able to apply this to a vast number of varied problem situations. Problem solving ability enables the child to find appropriate solutions of problems which confront them. Problem solving as a teaching strategy. Problem solving strategy may be defined as a strategy which provides opportunity to the students for analyzing and solving a problem on the basis of the previous stock of their knowledge enriched with the present means available to them quite independently by following some systematic steps and arriving at some basic conclusion or results to be utilized in future for the solution of similar problems in identical situations. A major goal of meaningful methods of instruction is to promote problem solving transfer, that is, the ability to use what was learned in new situations. Whitrock referred to meaningful learning as a generative process because it requires active cognitive processing during learning. Problem solving is an instructional method or technique whereby the teacher and pupils attempt in a conscious, planned and purposeful effort to arrive at some explanation or solution to some educationally significant difficulty. It is a planned attack upon a difficulty or perplexity for the purpose of finding a solution. Yoakum and Simpson define it as a problem occurs in a situation in which a felt difficulty to act is realized. It is a difficulty that is clearly present and recognized by the thinker. It may be purely a mental difficulty or it may be physical and involve the manipulation of data. The individual recognizes it as a challenge. American philosopher John Dewey explains problem solving as whenever, no matter how slight and commonplace in character, perplexes and challenges the mind so that it makes a belief at all uncertain, there is a genuine problem. The problem fixes the end of thought and the end controls the process of thinking. According to Gates, a problem exists for an individual when he has a definite goal he cannot reach by the behavior pattern which he already has available. Problem solving is not merely a method of teaching, it is more a method of organization of subject matter in such a way that it can be dealt with through the study of problems. Problem solving involves reflective thinking, which, according to John Dewey, is active, persistent, and careful consideration of any belief or supposed form of knowledge in the light of the grounds that support it and further conclusions to which it tends constitutes reflective thinking. Devi classifies thought processes into 4 types, beginning with the most rudimentary phases of mental activity and extending to the most complex forms of intellectual behavior. Number 1, at its first level, it is just idle fancy or daydreaming, when anything may fit across the mind without continuity or particular organization or sequence. Second, the second level of phase of thinking is reflected in imaginative stories and incidents. These stories and incidents have continuity and organization as well, but are not accepted as facts or truth. Third one, the third type of thinking is illustrated in our beliefs, prejudices, and superstitions, which are accepted and held by individuals uncritically or without rational analysis. Fourth one, the fourth and the highest level of thinking is reflective thinking. Now students, let us see what are the steps involved in problem solving. Problem solving in its form, nature, goals and objectives is quite similar to the strategy known as heuristic or discovery strategy. Therefore, its organizational process, that is the steps involved in the implementation of the strategy, is quite similar to that employed in heuristic strategy. These steps include: number 1, confrontation of the problem; second, describing and understanding of the problem; third, gathering relevant information or data; fourth one, analyzing the collected data or information; fifth one, formulation of hypothesis or tentative solution; sixth, it is selection and testing of a proper hypothesis; and the seventh one, application of the accepted hypothesis or conclusion. Formulation of the problem or confrontation with the problem. There should arise some problem needing solution before the students. This situation may arise in a natural way or may be posed by the teacher with planned and deliberate efforts. As far as possible, this problem should properly match the abilities, interests and capacities of the students, conform to the requirements of educational objectives and relate to the real life situations. Describing or appreciation and understanding of the problem, it is the next step. The problem faced should be clearly defined and understood by the students for its desired solution. The nature of the problem should be made very clear to the students. For this purpose, it should be properly analyzed. They must also feel the necessity of finding out a solution to a problem. The students should feel the need of solving this problem, the purpose served by the solution of this problem, and the possible ways of discovering the solution of the problem. The third step, collection of relevant data and information. The students should be stimulated to collect data in a systematic manner for the probable solution of the problem. Full cooperation of the students should be secured. The students may be persuaded to use their previous stock of information and knowledge, gather new information from available records, or by consulting books and literature. He may also ask them to organize a few educational trips to gather the relevant information. The teacher's role is limited to provide valuable guidance in a proper degree at a proper time. The fourth stage, organization of data. In this setup, collected data or information is analyzed in the light of finding out the probable solutions of the problem. What is relevant to the solution of the problem is properly picked up by leaving the non-relevant and superfluous parts. The student should be asked to sift the relevant material from the superficial one and put it in a scientific way. Formulation of hypotheses or tentative solutions. This is the fifth step. On the basis of the analyzed data or information relevant to the problem, the students are directed and guided to formulate probable hypotheses, that is, tentative plans for the solution of the sixth step includes selection and testing of a proper hypothesis. Out of the probable tentative plans for the solution of the problem, the most suitable one is selected. It may be done by taking all hypotheses, tentative plans one by one, discussing and weighing them in terms of their usefulness and practicability. The most relevant one then is further subjected to proper testing. And the final step, that is the application of the accepted hypothesis or conclusion. The hypothesis after proper testing is accepted as a best possible way to find out the solution of the problem. Attempts are then made to apply it in the solution of the other similar problems. In case it helps, it may be accepted as a valid and reliable conclusion or hypothesis which can be applied in the solution of similar problems in identical situations. No conclusion should be accepted without being properly verified. The correctness of the conclusions must be proved. The students must be taught to be critical, to examine the truths which they discover, to see whether they fit all the known data. We should have our minds free from every bias in the process of problem solving. Thus, problem solving strategy as a discovery strategy aims for the development of an attitude of inquiry among the learners. Problem solving is the act of defining a problem, determining the cause of the problem, identifying, prioritizing and selecting alternatives for a solution, and implementing a solution. It wants to make a student an active and independent inquirer and discoverer of the knowledge instead of a passive listener and recipient of the knowledge. Instead of getting information, students must be engaged in discovering the things or solving the encountered problems with their own independent efforts. Dear students, let us conclude by making an emphasis on the fact that the purpose of problem solving is to develop the tendency of investigation. It is based upon the assumption of Herbert Spencer that the learner should be encouraged to learn himself as much as possible. This method requires more logical and imaginative thinking in formulating the number of tentative solutions for the problem. The main objectives of the strategy are: number one, to develop problem solving tendency; number two, to develop logical cum imaginative thinking ability; number three, to develop scientific attitude towards the problem; number four, to encourage free thinking for performing the task; number five, a problem is placed before the learners and they attempt to seek the solutions of the problem. The learners get full freedom of working and thinking. The number of devices are used for solving the problem. The problem is analyzed in possible elements. The learners discuss themselves about the problem. The teacher encourages the students to work in laboratory setting and to study in the library. The teacher attempts to acquaint the learner with relevance of the problems. It is useful in so many respects. It develops the scientific attitude of the learner and tendency of observation. It enhances feeling of self-confidence and the self-reliance. It develops logical and imaginative thinking among the learners. It is based upon psychological principles of learning. It creates the situation for divergent thinking. However, it cannot be used for lower classes. It is a very time-consuming strategy. It cannot be used for the dull or poor students. Dear students, let us stop here, hoping that you might have enjoyed this lesson. Thank you.